I'm going to talk about something just a little bit different than apples today. American persimmons, grafted around the orchard. Most of these I planted about 10 years ago. The particular ones we're going to look at today mostly were purchased already grafted. I did graft a couple of them and I'll show you that. And we'll take a look at some of the different cultivars growing here and just where they're at on September 19th as far as maturity. Let's have a look. Test. All right, the first American persimmon that we're going to take a look at is John Rick. John Rick, for me, here in southern Indiana, ripens, it begins to ripen about now. It's September 19th, and I've got some of these maturing and falling right now, and then there's plenty that are still lagging behind on the maturity part. And the tree's still full of persimmons. As a matter of fact, this is probably the best crop this tree has had since I've had the pleasure to grow it. I purchased this tree as a seedling, grafted. It was already grafted when I purchased it and planted here. Like I said, it's been about 10 years. Time flies. It could be 12 or so, but this is definitely its biggest crop. Plenty of persimmons here, and the idea for me initially, and really still, was to provide some fall food for the deer and attract whitetails. So what does the John Rick persimmon do for me there with whitetails? John Rick draws them in for early bow season, no doubt about it. So if you want a attractive persimmon tree for early bow season, then John Rick is the tree. You see the tree has plenty of issues. I guess that's a fungal issue. I would call that persimmon scab if there is such a thing. I don't know. And the tree's looking ratty as far as the leaves go, but just full of fruit. I don't know if you can see into the top of the tree. Probably not too good, but it is full of persimmons. So John Rick, probably the earliest for me to begin ripening, but a couple others right with it here. We're going to take a look at those. Let's go have a look at the Yates variety. Well, before we do that, we'll just look at the graft that was put in on this tree, not by me, but by the individual that I purchased it from. Don't know if you can tell on camera. There's just a slight bulge right here, and just an ever so slight difference in the bark from here to up here. The bark is just a little bit different on both sides of both fingers there. So that's where the graft was. And this is the John Rick persimmon. Okay, persimmon number 2 is the Yates persimmon. The Yates persimmon ripens right there with John Rick, and it's dropping persimmons now. And I can see the raccoons, opossums, and perhaps the deer have been on these. Now you may see in the description for the Yates persimmon that it gets as big as a hen egg, and yeah, maybe a small hen egg, but you can see that's a fairly large persimmon. It's a good looking persimmon. My goodness, the thing's got some weight to it, that's for sure. This tree is the same age as the John Rick that we just looked at. Not loaded up as much. The top of the tree's got more persimmons than the bottom of the tree. I'm going to feed this one to the critters, but I wish you could feel the weight of that persimmon. That's a nice meaty persimmon. It's not jelly soft, but it's firm soft, which tells me it's probably just a little bit bitter yet if you wanted to eat it. A little astringent, but it's getting very close. We're getting some cool nights. That's helping. The old adage that persimmons need a frost to lose that astringency is a misnomer. They don't need a frost. They all have their own ripening times. And Yates, like John Rick, is one that ripens early, more in the top of the tree than down lower. Yates. Not a fast-growing persimmon. Not as tall as the John Rick. Doesn't look to be as scabbed up as the John Rick. And still some green. You know, there's green persimmons, there's light orange persimmons, and then there are some more mature persimmons that are dropping now. So it's certainly a good persimmon tree for those early season whitetails if you want to attract them. And a big persimmon if you're into persimmon pudding. Let's go have a look at Munich. Okay, here is the Munich persimmon, southern Indiana, September 19th. It is ripening, but not as far along as John Rick and Yates. I would put it a week or so behind them, although it's got some fruits that are really close to ripe. This tree had the top blown out of it last year, right there, so that didn't help it any as far as height goes. And it's not loaded up with persimmons. It does have some on it. I would just put it right behind Yates and John Rick as far as the maturity date, as far as vigor. It's a slow growing persimmon. Not that I've ever seen a fast growing persimmon. So really not much difference there. Been in this spot again about 10-12 years. The Munich persimmon. Let's go look at early golden. All right, here is early golden persimmon, and the name is a little bit misleading because early golden is not early. Early golden is still green. So it is a ways behind John Rick, Yates, and Munich in maturity, which is a great thing for deer hunters. If you want a persimmon that matures later than these other varieties, so plant a John Rick to draw them in early bow season, and then an early golden, amongst other varieties, but an early golden would be maybe more for mid-October to late October. It's hard to see the persimmons in the tree just because they are green. Again, this tree had some damage in that same windstorm last year where it took out some of the top. It's become more of an open grown tree now, and where it's spreading, I guess I should say. This tree was actually grafted on camera years and years ago, and if you search down in the videos, you'll find that one. There's the old graft union that I put in. You can see right there where the knot's at. That's where the scion grew around the trunk that I cut off and grafted it to. And that was probably about 8 years ago or so when I did that. This is early golden. Doesn't seem to have the infection that John Rick has. Definitely greener, or all green persimmons, so probably a month behind those other varieties. A great mid-October or later persimmon tree for whitetail hunters. Okay, the last persimmon tree I want to show you is one that I grafted on camera years and years ago. I believe that was called Top Working a Persimmon Tree, where I got on a ladder and grafted several branches here. And the tags are gone. It's amazing the animals that love to eat the silver tags. But I know I grafted John Rick onto here, and I'm going to say this is probably John Rick right here. Oh, there goes one. Probably a John Rick right there. And I'm not sure if I got Yates on here, but it looks very similar to John Rick out on this end and up above. And then Miller on the other side. I've not heard of the Miller variety other than the scion wood that I was given of Miller at a dinner I went to, Fruit and Nut Growers Association, and somebody had a Miller variety and I grafted that, and you can see it's still green. So that's interesting. On the same tree, see, we're all coming from the same tree here, that grafted a different variety. believe that might be the old graft union right there. Perhaps out there. Nope, that's not the graft union. That may be right there, where that elbow is. And that's Miller beyond that. But it's interesting that those are green on that branch, while the persimmons right next to it are ready to drop here shortly. And that's just because of the different cultivars that are grafted on this one persimmon tree. So if you're interested in how I did that, take a look. If I ever figure out how to attach links and all that to videos, and maybe I can do that someday. But this is a multi-grafted American persimmon. John Rick, Miller, and I'm not sure what else I might have gotten on here. Maybe that's early golden over there. I'm not sure, but I think it's Miller. Anyway, persimmons. Good old persimmon pudding. I had persimmon pudding a long time. Thanks